Good evening, all, and welcome all to this wonderful interview today through All India Runners Motivation. It's a platform for all runners and sportsperson to talk about their stories. And I'm very privileged to invite our guest today. And our guest for today is Major General Vikram Dogra. He's a 1981 pass out from Indian Military Academy, wherein he won the Sword of Honor and the Best Cadet Award. Also recipient of 6 gold medals during the passing out, and he is also the recipient of the President's Award of 𝐈𝐧𝐼𝐴 Medal (AVSM), and he also, during his 37 years of service, he was a keen sportsman and has done sports like squash, badminton, cycling, running, swimming. And also, he was introduced into triathlon in the year 2013. And the best part is that at the age of 58, he became the first serving Army general to complete an Ironman, and that also in a good record time. And the best part is that he went back again the next year and broke his own personal record. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome Major General Vikram Dogra to our. Hello, sir. Good evening.
Hi. Hi, Rajesh. How are you?
Fine. How are you, sir?
Good.
Been a busy day for you.
Yes, like every other.
Okay, fine. And also included training also for today.
Sorry?
I said it also included your morning training program, right?
Yes, of course. I train every day.
That's nice. So, we have got few people coming in and saying hello to you. So we just start the interview with the first question. Just tell us a bit about yourself, your childhood days. Where are you from? Just so that audience will get to know.
So I come from an army background. My grandfather was in the police. He used to be the SP in Lahore in 1930s. And thereafter, my father was in the army, and he joined the army in 1945. And we celebrated his 98th birthday on 13th of August.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so from the very beginning, I was in a military environment, and therefore, when I was going to near passing out from school, it was quite clear in my mind what I wanted to do was to join the National Defense Academy. And I passed out from St. George's College, Missouri, which is a boarding school. And after doing my 11th, I joined the NDA in 1978 January, which is the 59th course of the NDA.
Okay.
And in the NDA, of course, I did reasonably well. I was the Academy Cadet Adjutant, which is the the top appointment that you can get when you pass out. And then I graduated to the IMA, where, of course, I was again the Academy Cadet Adjutant, but passed out as the Academy Cadet Captain.
Okay.
And I joined a regiment called the Pune Horse.
Yes.
And the Pune Horse is the most highly decorated regiment of the Indian Army. We have 4 Victoria Crosses and 2 Paramveer Chakra in our regiment.
Okay.
And the highest number of battle honors in the entire Commonwealth. It's an armored regiment, over 200 years old. And so that was my journey in the regiment, and I went on to command the regiment sometime in 2001 when I was approved to become a colonel and a CO. I found that I was surplus, to my regiment, that
Okay.
they were offering me a different regiment, which was not acceptable to me. And I took something then called study leave.
Okay.
I took 2 years to wait.
Okay.
So whilst I was approved for command, my course-mates were commanding the regiments. From 2001 to 2003, I waited. And then in 2003, when the regiment fell vacant, I went and took over command of the Pune Horse and commanded it from 2003 to 2005. And finally, in 2017, I became the colonel of Pune Horse. Colonel of Pune Horse is it's an honorary appointment where the senior most officer of the regiment is given that title. And you're like a father figure. So that was, in short, my journey through the army. And of course, I went on to command an armored brigade, and I commanded an infantry division, which was part of a strike corps, looking at operations on the Western Front into Pakistan.
Yeah.
And there were other. I was the provost marshal of the Indian Army, which was head of the military police.
Yeah.
And then my last assignment was Director General Resettlement, where my task was to look for, jobs for about 50,000 Army, Navy, Air Force officers, JSUs, and Jawans when they retired. And that's where I hung up my spurs.
Oh, okay. That's nice. In fact, Pune horse was also known as Fakr Hind by the media in Pakistan during the war.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And also that one of the gold medals you received was for being the most fittest cadet, right, during your IMA days.
Yeah, so that was something called the para medal. It's a parachute regimental medal, and it's a competition.
Okay.
It's not really out of an assessment. They have a competition, and you need that time we were to run 10 miles, which was 16 kilometers in your full kit. You're carrying your pack, and you're with your rifle and equipment. And thereafter, then you come and do an obstacle course, which is a Russian obstacle course, and then you do firing. So it's running, obstacles, and firing, and they make a outcome of that.
Okay.
So that's
you
actually
got a higher score during that time.
Yes.
Okay. So when did your journey in athletics actually start? When did it start? During the school days, college? When was it?
Journey for
your liking towards athletics.
Oh, from the beginning, from the time I was a kid, I was in a place in Delhi called Princess Park, which was it's essentially a location where Army, Navy, Air Force officers stay. And my dad was posted in the field area. And 1967, I was about 7 years old when we went there. And that was a place which was a riot of children.
Okay.
100 houses, parents, dads mostly away in field postings. And we used to play every kind of game. And that's where I think my journey for sports and athletics and everything started. And then in school to an extent, but more so in the academy, NDA and IMA. And then after the academy, right to date, I play about 2 hours of squash or badminton or, I've been playing hockey, football, everything. I mean, every game under the sun, including golf.
Okay, that's nice. So, so I know that you told me that, you joined the army, that was your dream at that time. And at 11th standard, you know exactly what you wanted to do. How was the first experience when you joined NDA and IMA? A bit, how was it for you? I know you would have heard a lot from your father, but how was it for you?
So joining the NDA was, it was very different because when you join an academy like the National Defense Academy, there are people coming from various walks of life, various parts of the country, different cultures, different languages. I was from a boarding school. There were people come from military schools, Sainik schools, village schools, Doon schools. I mean, all kind of schools. So really, it's a big mix of people, and it takes certain amount of time to get used to. This is the first time you're exposed to people from such a large variety of backgrounds. So for me personally, it was a little difficult in the first month because I found people who were very rustic. Okay. I found people who were very different. Some were very, brash. So a lot of fights in the first 1 month and a lot of warnings from the DSs that, you guys will be thrown out because if you cannot amalgamate, then you are unfit to join the forces. So things like that. So it is a very unique experience. But then, as time passes and you settle down and your edges are rounded up, you fit quite well as, well-oiled parts of a single machine. Okay. And by the time we passed out from NDA, that is 3 years later, we were very well amalgamated. So the experiences are nothing compared to when you join NDA because you are already done 3 years behind you and you are now joining the IMA in your second term. There are first termers who come in fresh. You join as a second termer. So really, you know the ropes. You are physically fit. You are acclimatized to everything that the IMA has to throw at you. Okay. So joining the NDA, IMA is not really any different experience, but the NDA was surely what I told you.
Okay, that's. I'm sure the what the DSS told you would have been the most commonly repeated dialogue every year
Yeah,
when new people are coming in.
I use the
Okay,
same thing. I
so
was posted back in
during
the
the time,
NDA. I was posted back
yeah,
as a squadron commander in the NDA in 1992.
okay,
And to
yeah,
my own squadron, I was part of Hunter Squadron, and I went there as squadron commander, Hunter Squadron. So I used the same dialogues which were thrown at me, and now I could use the conviction that I had been through the same squadron. So you guys don't tell me what to do. You guys are going to follow what I tell you.
been there, done there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, you during the army days or during your cadet, and I mean, you undergo a lot of physical training. Um, can you just give an idea to the audience about the physical training you undergo uh, in the academy?
Well, you undergo a lot of physical training, but what makes it more tough is the fact that you undergo this training along with a lot of other training. So, to narrate a typical day of the National Defense Academy would be to wake up at 4:30, quarter to 5 in the morning, and then your morning evolutions and stuff, and you are ready now in your PT rig or in your drill rig to go for first PT. And if you're going for PT, then you have your drill kit on your cycle, because you will get 20 minutes in between to change into your drill and then do drill. So you have a 40-minute PT, you have a 40-minute drill, then you will have one period of classes, academics.
Okay.
Rush back, change after a bath, go for breakfast, and then go for an academic half day, which is to get you a degree, either a BA or a BSc.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you are in an academic frame. And the moment you get back, you have your lunch, and you are meant to get some time off, which is not there, because that time is taken by your seniors to, give you a ragada and to sort you out for all the, things you didn't do right,
Yeah.
even if you did them right.
Yeah.
And then you go for your games.
Okay.
And after your games, then you come back and you change and you put into a study period.
Okay.
And you study for 1 hour. It's like, you catch up with whatever you did in the day.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's dinner and time to sleep.
Okay.
And that time to sleep is not your time, because again, the seniors are there after you. So the lights are out at 10 o'clock, you're pulled out of your cabin. And then again, you're disciplined for things that you didn't do or did do. And so, your sleeping hours reduce. And whilst if you were to just in isolation do this 40 minutes of PT and 40 minutes of drill, it would not be too much. But that 40 and 40 plus the additional which you're doing in the afternoon and the evening, and then the movement from place A to place B, whether you are on a cycle or if your bike is punctured, you're running, all that put together day after day is what takes it to.
So there was no off day during that time, or was it like 7 days a week?
Yeah, it is an off day. But then there are those guys to take care of you, for everything that you didn't do and you did. So the seniors, the pressure that is generated on you from your second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth termers is probably as much as the toll which your training takes.
Okay.
And that is why you'll find a lot of, kids, I would call them kids, they want to leave, because it becomes very intense.
Okay. So I think did that shape your the way you are actually as an athlete? Did all this training?
No, it doesn't shape you as an athlete, but it builds in resilience. It builds your endurance. It builds your willpower to accept things which you would otherwise not accept.
Okay.
So
nice.
It does develop you mentally. It makes you mentally tough.
Okay. After 30, 35 years of service, or 30 years of service, actually, you had undergone a huge change in your career, which made you take up a lot of things, including singing, saxophone, cycling, and running. Just if you can explain us, how did this physical exercise help you to tackle this phase of your life?
It was not really a phase, but it was an event. where there was disappointment because I was not approved to the next rank. And in my mind, I felt I deserved it. So when there is a conflict of what you feel and what happens, then there is pain. And in this case, when there was pain, I felt withdrawn. I felt I was responsible. I started blaming myself. I felt low in my self-esteem. And I started to get into a cocoon. I started to avoid meeting people. I started to, staying away from parties and stuff like that. And I realized after some time being in this zone that I was decaying. And I needed to do something to get out of it.
Okay.
And I tried these stuff which you said. I tried to, learn singing. I tried to learn to play the saxophone. I tried to recite poetry. I cycled from Leh to Chandigarh. I cycled from, Bomdila to Tawang to Bumla, which is on the Chinese border. I tried all this stuff. It didn't help. And I used to hit the gym with a vengeance because that was one place to let off your steam. So it was not when I was at 30 years, it was when I was at 35 years of service. I was around 56, 57. And I found that the longer I ran and the more my body pained, the better I felt in my mind.
Okay.
And so that is the time I realized that I'm trying to probably hurt myself, and because I'm blaming myself for what has happened.
Okay.
And I started looking for something to do which would redeem my self-confidence. And that is when I came upon this event called the Ironman. And I thought, when I looked at the distances of 3.8 kilometers of swimming, 180 kilometers cycling, 42 kilometers running, that's when I decided, I said, this is so intimidating. And if I can do this, at least I will know in my mind that I can still do whatever I've set my mind to do. And that is how this journey to the Ironman started.
That's wonderful. In fact, before the Ironman journey, you took part in the lower version of the Ironman journey also, and without much training, you actually got a podium finish, right?
Yeah, well, actually, those are local events, and they do not compare to an Ironman because in an Ironman event, firstly you swim in an open water.
Yeah.
Either a lake or the sea. Here you swim in the swimming pool, so it's very simple. Then there is no elevation in the cycling; it's a flat ground. So these were like just for fun and games. You don't really need to put an effort for doing what these events are. They even do an Ultraman here in Delhi, and now I think a couple of other places. But there is no elevation, and that changes the entire dynamics of cycling. So if you were to cycle, say, 350 kilometers with an elevation of 10,000 feet, which you gain, vis-a-vis 3,500 kilometers, 350 kilometers on a flat ground, it's not the same. So these were not really precursors, but I would say they were. I just joined up because it was good fun. There was nothing in my mind that time for Ironman.
Okay. I just take this moment because we got few people saying hello to you. We got Lieutenant Commander Vijay Nair, who's saying hello to you. He's from Bombay. I've got Satish Gujaran, sir, who is an ultra marathoner who has run the Comrades Marathon in South Africa, which is 89 kilometers, around 10 times. He's saying hello. We have got Durgesh also saying hello to you.
Hello.
We have got Nimesh Jaiswal also saying hello to you from Bangalore, and Som from Calcutta, and Smita from Pune. So a few people who are tuned in and saying hello to you.
Hello to everyone.
So thanks for that. What made you choose? I mean, during that time, did you have any coach or did you follow anyone?
No, I felt being 57. I thought I knew my body well.
Okay.
So I had no coach. I joined no gym. I had no nutritionist, but I did a lot of research. luckily now, with the internet and the YouTubes, everything is available. You can actually find expert coaching online. The coaches that you get, firstly, there are hardly any coaches for Ironman. And now, of course, some people who have done Ironman have started coaching. But I would be more comfortable researching it on my own, because everything and different perspectives are available online.
Okay.
And you need to find the methodology that suits your body type.
Okay.
And that can only happen if you involve yourself in it. No coach can tell you or can decipher for you what kind of a body type you are unless he's in very close contact with you. And such events, by virtue of being very few numbers, and it's not like an academy that you join, it's very difficult for the coach to spend that kind of time with you. So I felt this technique better, and it works out well for me. And I recommend this technique to people rather than to go to somebody else to get coached, because here you get it from the experts.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's nice. In fact, during that time, you were also working. Doing the first Ironman, right? And you had to juggle time. How did you manage all that? Because I'm sure working is there and training for this event is also there. How did you manage? What did you tell yourself during that time?
You made a statement that the first time I was working, and of course that is factually correct. And the second time I was retired.
Still
but I was not working.
Yeah.
But my management of time was easier the first time than the second time.
Oh, okay.
So I was spending about 10 hours at work. Like I said, my last assignment where I was that time was DG resettlement. And I was in charge of this resettlement of people. And it would take away 10 hours of a day. And I was lucky to have a 5-day week because I was in Delhi. And Saturday, Sunday was off. I would get back from work at about 6-ish, 5:45. Change, and then run from 7 to 10 at night, because that was the only time I had. I would spend the early mornings before I went to work for body strengthening, core strengthening at home. So for 3 days out of the 5 working days, I would run. Okay. On 2 days, I would swim, same time, 7 to 10, because that was the only time available. And I would leave the weekends, that is Saturday night, for the cycling ride, because the cycling ride of 180 kilometers needs between 6 to 7 hours.
Okay.
And it's not possible to be done on a working day. Also, since, in this event, the Ironman, you cannot do something called drafting. That means you cannot follow people and take advantage of cycling in his wake.
Yeah.
And wind is the biggest resistance that you face when you're on a cycle. And so to get over this, in a non-drafting event like the Ironman, you use aero bars. Okay. So aero bars are those bars, where you have to sit in an aerodynamic position. And so to cycle in an aerodynamic aero bar mode, you need a straight road. It can't be on a road which is passing through the town. Okay. So therefore, you have to go to a highway. I used to go to the Greater Noida Expressway. Okay. And one round of that to Greater Noida and back is about 48 kilometers. And then you did about 3 or 4 or 2, depending upon how much you wanted to work out. So I would use the Saturday night to cycle there from about 2 in the morning to 9 on a Sunday morning, because that gave me the advantage of avoiding the sun. The pollution was less because traffic is less, and traffic is less, so you are safer on the road.
Yeah.
And also, it gave me the entire Sunday morning after that to relax and recoup. So that was the model I used, because I had no other choice. But now when I had the choice, like I said, in the second time, I could cycle by day, I could cycle by night. But then, like I said, it was simpler the first time because this was a very set routine I had made.
Yeah.
In the second one, I had the choice. And in the choice, there comes cheat days. No, not now. Let's do it later. And so it became more confusing for me.
Okay. So how many kilometers you used to run? 7 to 10?
I made up my mind not to do less than 10 kilometers every time I went for a run.
Okay.
And I also want to say I never did a 42 kilometer. The first 42 kilometers of my life was done on Austria when I was doing the Ironman. And the second 42 kilometer of my life was done in Hamburg when I was doing the second Ironman. So I didn't feel the need to do the complete distance while training, because the longer you train, the longer is your recovery time.
Okay.
And if you were to do a 42-kilometer run, you need 1 week of recovery time.
Okay.
So I didn't have the luxury of that kind of time. As it is, my time was constrained by, since I was working.
Yeah.
So I used to run normally out of the, say, if you were to say over 4 weeks into 3 days, which I'm running 12 days, in those 12 days, 5 or 6 days would be 10K.
Okay.
And I would 2-3 days do a 15K or 4 days and do 121K, at the end of the month. And then somewhere maybe in 2 months, I did a 30K. And once in my entire training, I did a 35K. Otherwise, I used to stick to 15, 10, 15, 10, 15, but do it thrice a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many months did you train for your first Ironman?
I trained for about 18 months.
18 months.
18 months,
Wonderful.
yes.
Okay. One of the things, as you said about Ironman, is open sea swimming. How did you train for that?
I did. I just went in with my confidence. So I had never swum in an open body.
My God, amazing.
I did all my training here in Sri Fort. In Delhi we have this pool.
Yeah.
So it was all pool swimming. There is no water body in Delhi which is worth swimming. There is one place near Faridabad where you can attempt, but it's so dirty because all the sewage, everything goes in there.
Okay.
So when I went to Austria, the first time I got into a lake was actually on the property we were staying.
Yeah.
That had access to another lake, not the lake we were to swim in. And that's where I swam. But that was more not because I wanted experience from the lake point of view. But, Austria was a non-wetsuit event because the temperature was expected to be around 24.5 in the water. Okay. And anything beyond 24, you don't wear a wetsuit. Okay. So I had never trained in a wetsuit, and I didn't possess one also. But when I went there, there was some disturbance in the weather, and the temperature dropped to 21.
Oh, okay.
And there was no way I could swim without a wetsuit. So I went and bought one at the expo out there. Okay. And in this lake, which was luckily there next to the property, I acclimatized myself. I can't say I practiced, but I acclimatized myself to swim in a wetsuit. Okay. And the other issue I had was I do the breaststroke. I'm a breaststroke swimmer. I'm not a freestyle swimmer.
Yeah.
And when you wear a wetsuit with a breaststroke, the wetsuit has a buoyancy because it's neoprene.
Yeah.
And that is, it's got air bubbles. It brings your legs up. So if in a breaststroke, if your legs come out and you are pushing the water, you are actually firing in the air and you are losing energy. So I needed to buy something called a shorty, a wetsuit which is only up to the thighs.
Okay.
And the wetsuit which has either half sleeves or is sleeveless. So mine was sleeveless because you're moving your arms. If you're in a freestyle mode, then a full wetsuit is good and it helps you. But in the breaststroke, unless you have a shorty, you can't swim. So these were the little challenges I faced, and it happened right there. And no open water swim experience. But let me assure you, you don't need it. Because when you enter the water, there are 2,850 of you who have gone in.
Okay.
And whilst it may be a huge lake, the experiences with the guy hitting your head with his leg and his hand, and you are in a melee. There is it's worse than a swimming pool. The swimming pool is most. So you don't fear. Unless, psychologically you start thinking, where is the bottom and what is below me and stuff like that.
Okay.
Otherwise, so I had no issue. I had no problem.
Now, when you mentioned the head and the hand hitting your head, I remember my summer holiday swimming classes. When we used to go, and everybody in the school used to be in the same swimming pool. So the same thing happened during, school days also. So how was the first experience? What was the plan during the first Ironman you had gone? My
plan was very simple, that I have to complete the event.
Okay.
And I had a very unpleasant experience when I was doing my, I had planned to do a 40-kilometer run. Okay. I told you I never did beyond 35.
Yeah.
That day I had planned a 40. And it was the month of June 2018. And I was running in Delhi.
Okay.
And I had started at about 7 o'clock or
Okay.
6:30.
Yeah.
And by the time I reached 30 kilometers, it was so hot and humid that I had lost a lot of sweat and electrolyte. And whilst I was having hydration tablets for, replenishing my electrolytes, but I think a mismatch took place and I cramped.
Okay.
And I remember lying on the road. I had finished 31 kilometers. I was lying on the road and I was cramping in my chest and my stomach.
Okay.
And it was so bad that I couldn't even stand up. But fortunately, lasted only about 15, 20 seconds.
Okay.
And then it receded. And I forced myself to walk and run another 5. I did 35 kilometers that day.
Okay.
Now, that was there at the back of my mind. So when I went for the event, my strategy was not to cramp.
Okay.
Because if you cramp, then the whole event is gone. So, and you will cramp or may cramp if you are trying to, extend yourself beyond what you can.
Okay.
So if you start looking at a time that, I want to do it in so much of time. Because it was my first one, I said it's more important to complete than to try for some kind of a timing. So I had decided I'll go comfortable. Between 14 to 15 hours, I'll be comfortable. So I didn't chase anybody. I just went with my watch. So I had decided if I do a swim in about 1 hour, 30 minutes, 35 minutes, even 1 hour, 40 minutes, breaststroke, I'll be good. I managed, I think, 127 swim.
Okay.
Cycling, I had hoped for 6 hours. But because the elevation was so intense, it was 6,000 feet of elevation in Austria, that I went from 6 to 7 hours, 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So I lost an hour in my own planning.
Okay.
And then in the run, I did a walk and run, which was so that I don't cramp. And when the first 21, of course, I did quite a steady pace of run, less walking, more running. In the second one, now it was quite clear that if I didn't cramp, the Ironman would happen. Okay. So then I decided to walk more and run less so that, it was more important, like I said, to complete. So that was my strategy throughout.
How was your, what was your hydration strategy? How often were you taking fluids?
Now, hydration, you need to take hydration every 30 minutes.
Okay.
Nourishment. When you talk of hydration, it depends on how much you sweat. In my case, I'm a heavy sweater.
Okay.
And how you distinguish between a light and a heavy sweater is that a person who sweats more is that when you come back from your run, you should not wash your clothes, just hang them and let them dry. And if there is a sweat line, the white lines which form, then you are sweating heavily. And if you are sweating heavily and the weather is like now Delhi weather was different, 42, 43. Austria, it was 26, 27. So in Delhi, I would be taking 2 hydration tablets every hour. Okay. Whereas in Austria, it was 1 an hour. So that was the frequency I was using. For somebody who sweats less, you can regulate it, but you will only come to know this out of hit and trial. There is nowhere anybody can give you a formula to say this is the formula that will work for you. It works differently for everybody. But I was taking 1 per hour.
And what nourishment were you taking during that time?
Yeah, in the nourishment part, like I was saying, it's 30 minutes. The first 5 kilometers when you finish of your run, for example, you have consumed your reserves. Now here you are starting with a swim, and 3.8 kilometer swim, you can't nourish yourself at all. So I had a protein gel 20 minutes prior to the start of the swim.
Okay.
And then during the swim, like I said, you can't have anything. And the moment you finish your swim and you go for your first transition, that is the time I replenished myself with 2 protein gels I had. But so 1 before I started changing and 1 immediately as I was going out with my cycle. Of course, they were too close together. Normally, there should be a 30-minute gap between your protein gels. But I had them both together. Now, in hindsight, I can say that it was not required. And then on my cycle, every half an hour, I was religiously having a protein gel. And I had carried some energy bars with me, 2 of them, which were in the rear pocket. And I did pick up half a banana every, maybe 30, 40 kilometers, whenever I felt the requirement. Otherwise, the strategy was to go with the protein gels. And I also used a fuel called Perpetual.
Okay.
Now, Perpetuum is by Hammer, you know, the company is Hammer, and it's a solid fuel where one scoop can give you enough calories for 1 hour.
Okay.
So I was using 50% Perpetuum, 50% protein, energy bar, protein gels, and I was also using an energy drink called SIS.
Okay.
So, but the formula I used was not to consume more than 250 calories an hour.
Okay.
If you use more than 250 calories or you consume more than that, then it leads to bloating, and that leads to nausea, and you can also be vomiting. So you have to be quite regulated in what you consume. That all I researched from the net, and I was very meticulous in that. So there was nothing which went wrong there.
So you had something written actually.
Every half an hour, I would have something. That something could be the protein gel. It could be a sip of my Perpetuum, or it could be half a banana. Because a full banana is 100 calories. One protein gel is 100 calories. And the Perpetuum, like I told you, one scoop, which you, of course, have liquefied with water, gives you an hour, which again is about 250 calories. So you make your own mathematics as to what sequence or what you want to have, but ensure it doesn't go beyond 250. It can't be less also, because then you start feeling low on energy. So it happened to me towards the end of my cycling at about 150 kilometers. I was low on energy because I had got fed up by having only protein gels. They are very sweet. And in the stations en route, they had nothing salty. I mean, there were no crackers or no wafers or nothing. They just had bananas, and they had the same protein gels. So I was low on energy, and I was carrying that energy bar I told you, but I couldn't locate it because, when you're cycling and you're putting your hand in the rear pocket, with one hand you're cycling, and it's undulating terrain, so it's a little dicey. It got lost somewhere there. So I was very low, and then I located it when about 25 kilometers was left. I located that energy bar. And when I had that, then suddenly I got my energy back, and it was good.
That's nice. So when you completed the first one, first Ironman at 14 hours, 21 minutes.
Yes.
And you managed to complete it, just being the first serving army general to complete it.
No, the first serving army officer.
Officer, sorry.
And the general in the world.
And the general in the world, yes. So what were your learnings during that first event?
Learnings in terms of the Ironman event, or learnings in terms of
we can add both.
No, because the other one, life learning.
It's a long one.
So the Ironman learning, of course, like I'm telling you, in hindsight, I didn't need to have 2 gels. So now, to conclude, what I learned is that the most important part of the Ironman is your race day strategy. That strategy has to do with your nourishment, your hydration, and the pace that you want to keep. Now, that pace needs to be realistic based upon your preparation. If you start chasing targets which are beyond your limit, then you will find that you will either cramp, or you will have, exhaustion, or you will bonk out. And when that happens as part of the event, then recovery is very difficult. So race strategy has to be formulated through experience, not based on my race strategy may not work for you. So that was one lesson I learned. As far as the hydration, it's very important because that is what prevents you from cramping. And luckily, I didn't cramp in my first event, and nor did it happen in the second one. So I was quite good at that. The nourishment part in my first event went off very well. In my second event, it didn't go off well. Because in hindsight, I know I made a mistake. I taped my energy gels onto my cycle so that you can just rip it off and put it in your mouth. And I taped them in India. So having taped my gels, my bike flew into Germany. I landed there 5 days before the event. And for those 5 days, those gels were exposed to hot, cold, and everything. And they got spoiled. So when I consumed those gels in my event, after my cycling went off very well. I did it in 6 hours and 10 minutes in Hamburg. But after that, those gels started reacting in my body, and I was feeling bloated and pukish. So I was vomiting.
Okay.
And when I started my 42 kilometers, I couldn't even run 300 meters. So, of course, I ran past the crowd that was cheering when I finished my cycling. And the moment I did the turn from the round, I started walking. And I was only being able to run 200 meters at a time. I was so exhausted because of this, upheaval in my stomach. And I still had 42 kilometers to go. And I was just out of willpower, pushing, walk, run, walk, run, walk, run. And I managed to finish. Of course, I saved on 40 minutes over my previous time.
Yeah.
But that was because of the good performance in cycling. But now I'm going to go for the next Ironman and hope to improve and come in the 12-hour bracket.
Okay. Because my question was that what made you do the second one after doing the first one?
I had sworn never to do another Ironman when I finished doing the first one.
Okay.
Because it was so strenuous and it was, 18 months of training. But 3 months down the line, I again found that I was losing focus. In the sense, I was back to the same stage. I had, I was in this situation where, like, at work, there was no challenge. At home, there was no challenge. There was no challenge anywhere. I needed a challenge. I need a challenge in life all the while.
Yeah.
So I went and registered for the next one so that, I have a challenge. And then I can start channelizing my energy towards training so that I have a goal, I have a mission, which is on. And like now in this lockdown, there is no challenge. You can't run, you can't cycle. So I started on the plank challenge. I took on the plank challenge.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I've seen that. What is the maximum time you've done now? Half an hour?
So far, I'm at 38 minutes
of
plank. And my ambition is to do at least 65 because the Indian Army Parachute Regiment Center record is 65 minutes.
Okay.
And my aim right now, that's my goal, is to try and break that. So hopefully next month I should do a 45. Let's see.
Okay, that's nice. So the second Ironman, you beat your time by 41 minutes. Did you change any strategy during that time? I know that you wanted to do it, but was there any other change apart from the cycling part of it?
No, there was no change in anything, nor the cycling, nor the running, nor anything. I mean, I just trained harder. But in this second one, I was not holding back.
Okay.
I told you in the first one, I was restrained because I wanted to ensure I completed rather than get a time.
Okay.
In the second one, I wanted to improve my time, so I was going all out. But it went awkward in the gels that I had, and so in my run, I couldn't do well.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would have surely come down into the 12 to 13-hour bracket, but it went wrong. And that is now the reason I need to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, the research when I did about your second event, it was a more difficult event than the first one because the cutoff time was different. Then the second thing was that the sea was dirty, and also, it was hot and wind factor also. Was there.
Very strong headwind.
How did you tackle this uncertainty? Because it was not something which you expected. What did you tell yourself during those times?
Whilst we were there, the temperature started rising. And there was a heat wave on in Europe. And the day this event finished, the next day it rained. So the temperatures came down to normal. But during this time when we were there, before the event, now I knew it was coming. I had experienced it earlier, and even now when I saw the temperatures going up, I didn't cater for the wind factor. I didn't know it would be so strong.
Okay.
But because the temperatures went up, probably the winds also became stronger, and we cycled into the countryside, open flat countryside, where the winds were like the windmills were there, and we were cycling into the wind which came at the windmill. That took a lot of toll. Although you also did a turnaround and came back with the wind, but you got so exhausted going into the wind that you could not really recoup as much with the tailwind as you lost with the headwind.
Okay.
So it was just mental preparation that I knew it was coming, but there's nothing I can do about it. Yeah.
What did you tell yourself during that time?
There was no telling. There was no question of quitting. So it was just like, I have to do it. I have to finish it. So, you can only talk to your mind. Your body doesn't listen to your talk. The body responds to the extremity which is facing, and it's giving away.
Yeah. Okay. So there is no question of quitting. That is exactly maybe what you would have told yourself.
Yeah. I had told my wife, I'm not going to quit. I'll die doing it. I am not going to quit. So quit I won't.
Okay. During these times, I mean, very influenced by any other Ironman. Do you have any role models you look up to in the sport?
Yes, I have the ultimate role model, and she is a woman called Sister Madonna.
Yes,
And
from Ireland.
no, she's from the US.
Yes. Okay.
She is a practicing nun,
Yeah.
and she was introduced to running at the age of 48. At the age of 52, she did her first Ironman, and thereafter she did them 40 times. And she is titled Iron Nun. If you YouTube Iron Nun, you will see her.
Yeah.
So she was when I saw her YouTube before I did my first Ironman event, I was truly inspired by her. What a journey!
I mean, it
And
was amazing.
there is one more I want to share.
Yeah.
There is this Marine Lieutenant Colonel. I forget his name now, whose son is physically and mentally challenged. And this boy, when he was young, at the age of about 10, he told his father he wants to do a marathon.
Yeah.
And they did a local event in the city that they live in the US, where the boy was in a wheelchair and the father ran and pushed him those 5 kilometers. It was a 5-kilometer run, and they came second last or third last. But the boy felt very good that he had participated in a marathon. And then as he grew, he told him, I want to do a bigger marathon and bigger. And then he told him, I want to do an Ironman.
Okay.
And this man did the Ironman with his son. So when he swam, this boy was in a canoe, and the canoe was strapped to his father's back, and he did the 3.8. And then he cycled the 180 with the boy in a basket in the front of his cycle, 180 kilometers. And then he ran with a wheelchair for 42 kilometers. And he completed the Ironman. So
that's an amazing story.
Yeah, so what an amazing journey it is. You have a look at that.
Yeah, that's nice. I got few people asking questions. We got Nigel Clements, who's a veteran from UK, who's asking a question about training reduction in the last days and weeks before an Ironman.
Yeah. So you need to do a tapering off. There will be a time in your training when you actually should peak, and that should be about 2 to 3 weeks prior to your event. And in those balanced 2 to 3 weeks, you need to start reducing your training, not stopping, reducing, so that your muscles remain in touch with the running, but start recouping. Because when you are getting close to race day, you need to hit the event with your muscles in good shape. Okay. So it's better to be, like they say, it's better to be undertrained than to be overtrained. So whilst this is not undertraining, this is just tapering off. Your tapering off runs should be there so that you can gradually come down to 4-5 days of no activity or no running or cycling before the event. So that is a technique which is actually well known, and I tried it. It works well. Although for me, I don't stop 4 to 5 days earlier. I stop about 10 days earlier. Okay. Because my body, like I said, you need to know your body. And in my case, I feel that when I stop about 10 days earlier, I perform better. Of course, in these 10 days, you are doing, small amount of running, stretching, flexibility exercises and stuff like that.
Nigel, I hope you got your reply. We've got one more question before I ask you further questions, sir. Can you brief on your training? What would a typical training week would be for you, and how do you plan your recovery during training?
So I have already described my typical week as it used to be. I was running at night depending upon how much I was doing the run, maybe 10 kilometers, 15 or 20. So, but 3-hour bracket was what I was looking at, from 7 to 10, because you can do a 20K also within that much time, in fact, 2 hours. Yeah. So that was what I was doing on a daily basis for 3 days a week, and 2 days I would swim. I would not swim more than 2 kilometers. I did the 3.8 only twice, but I don't advise you to follow what I did. So this is what I did, because every body is different. But I felt that, like I said earlier, if I trained too long, I needed recovery time would increase. In this case, I wasn't taking a day off, except for Sunday. So I would be doing it all 5 days, and on the 6th day I was cycling. But I remained within the threshold where I didn't need more than 1 day a week rest day. Okay. If you were to now increase your running, say, if you were to run, say, 20 kilometers every day, yeah, it won't be possible. You would probably then do 20 kilometers alternate day. Okay. Also, I used the technique of heart rate training. That means training by monitoring my heart rate, rather than what normally people do of training on the sense that no pain, no gain, that unless you go and you come back totally exhausted, you feel you have not done enough workout. Yeah, yeah, that is what normally people do. I mean, we also did it throughout our academy, my army career. Yeah. So when you follow the no pain, no gain kind of methodology, then you need a day off, because your muscles have let off the lactic acid and the soreness is there. It takes time to recover. But if you follow the heart rate technique, you can run every day. So your recovery time is directly proportional to the technique that you use and how much you're exploiting your body.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that answer. A question from my side. It's about strength training. Something which all hobby runners, all late bloomers in athletics or wanting to be fit, they don't like. They either do only strength training and no cardio, or when they do cardio a lot, they don't do strength training. What is your take on strength training in relation to what you're doing?
I think it's very important. Strength training is as important as your cardio training. Now, cardio only gives you the cardiovascular capability to sustain your run. But your muscles, which are also participating in the run and which are being fueled from the oxygen coming through your cardio system, also need strength to sustain you. And the stronger they are, the better is your sustenance, the more efficient is your running, the less is your calorie consumption, and the better you will get. So I think strength training is very important. You're right, most people ignore it. And core strengthening is, I would say, amongst the strength training, core strengthening is priority 1. Because everything, your arms and your legs are all attached to your core. And if your core is not strong, your legs you can work out, your arms you can work out, and that's what most of us do when you go to the gym. You will do biceps and triceps and hands and your quads. But you ignore your core. But the core is what supports all these 4 things. So core strengthening is very important. And in a nutshell, I think strength training is as important, if not more important, than cardio.
I liked what you said, that more stronger you are, the lesser the calorie consumed while going for tough events like an Ironman. And that is what people don't realize, actually. And that's the reason maybe they ignore strength training. What are your future plans? I know that you want to do the next Ironman, but as an athlete, what are the other plans for you?
See, as an athlete, I don't think I'm right now at the stage where I'm over 60 to be really taking part in any athletic events, because athletics requires speed and agility, and what I do is endurance. As you grow older, you lose speed, but you gain endurance. Okay. So for me, it's only endurance events, and so the endurance events, Ironman is the most grueling one-day endurance event in the world. And that is what I have set my sights for. I intend to do one every year. But I also have a plan of cycling around the world. And
Okay.
actually, that was to start this year, but and I was to start in September. But this pandemic, which has come about, I don't see that happening till all this is settled. And that was to do a 22,000-kilometer ride starting from Delhi into Europe, North America, South America, Australia, back to Asia, and then back to Delhi.
Okay.
I was looking for somebody who could join me on this ride because it would take at least 10 months. And you don't have many people who want to spend 10 months doing something so ridiculous as this. And so I was in that frame where I was planning this out when this thing
Okay.
came about in March.
Okay.
And I hope maybe 2 years later, if things improve, I should be able to do that. And that's really a dream.
Any chance of reading your journey in a book? Any book coming up?
Well, I am writing a book and I am trying to make it interesting because stuff like this is quite monotonous. It's documentaries. But I'm trying to put in some incidents and all that. Let's see how it shapes up. I have started on the book about a month back. And I think I would need a couple of months, maybe more, to crystallize it.
So this is my question is about what advice could you give to anyone, who want to be like you as an athlete?
I think anybody who wants to do, say, the Ironman, before they take this decision of doing the Ironman, they need to evaluate whether they have the time and the energy to spare or to devote towards the training.
Okay.
Because, like I said, it takes long hours to train. And if you are working, then the challenge is tough. So if you are at a stage in life when you are trying to make a mark for yourself at your workspace, then it may not be a good idea to start taking on something like the Ironman because you will be at a conflict course. There'll be a conflict between what you actually need to be doing and
Yeah.
what you are doing. So the timing of your doing the Ironman should be decided based upon where you are in life. And I feel that as you get into the 40s and you have reached some kind of a status or location or a position in your professional life,
Yeah.
you may be able to devote a better amount of time out here rather than when you are in your start of your career at 25, 30, 40. Like that. So that is very important. Otherwise, you will end up finding that you can't devote the time and then it won't happen and you'll get disappointed.
Okay.
And having done that, once you decide that you're going to do it, then the commitment has to be there. You have to put in those hours of training because the Ironman actually is something that any person can do. Any ordinary person can do the Ironman, provided they spend the time training. So you have to put
like you did 18 months of training.
Well, I did 18 months for different reasons. I was 57, turning 58, and like that.
Yeah.
Also, maybe I overinsured. I could have put in less effort.
Okay.
Also, I was working. So, it's a combination of things. So I don't say you need to put 18 months. But surely if you are not very, into something like this, you would need a year. For a full Ironman. A half Ironman is a different ballgame. It's much easier.
Okay. There's one last question coming because we are reaching 1 hour time, sir. Any plans of ultra runs, in future for you?
I wanted to go for the 𝐏𝐫𝐸, but really, I'm not excited to do the 𝐏𝐫𝐸, except that it's a big event and
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
ultimate running event. And I also happened to meet this guy Bruce, who is a South African. I was at the Beyond the Finish Line seminar in Mumbai Marathon in 2019, and he'd been invited from South Africa, and we were together at this event where we were, sharing our experiences. And he had done the 𝐏𝐶𝐫𝐸 35 times, and he had won it 8 times. So he told me all about it, and it seems very, like the ultimate event, but it's only a running event. So to me, it's not right now got me to commit. I'm looking at Ironman, and maybe down the line I might do the comrades.
But I mean, the world record holder for the oldest person to do Ironman is 89 years. He's a Japanese guy
Yeah,
who just got the world
I
record.
think just a few days
So,
back, yes.
so yes, so when you're doing all the Ironmans, I'm sure by the time you reach 89, you might break his record also. So that brings the end to our session, sir. It's been really a pleasure, doing this session with you and connecting with you. And I wish you all the best for your future as an athlete. And yes, when the book comes out, please let us know so that we'll be there to buy it and read your experience. Thank you very much, sir, and Jai Hind. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And I hope people who have heard my experience can gain something out of it. And I wish you and your endeavor to, interview people like this all the best.
Thank you.
All the best and good luck to you, Jai.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So thank you very much for being there. It was a wonderful experience talking to Major General Vikram. If Major General is watching, we're going to have Bruce Fordis coming on 22nd of August, and who will be who is also going to be interviewed, and my first international guest who has agreed to come in. So please be tuned in to our channel for Bruce Fordis. But going forward, 21st of August, we got Lieutenant Commander Vijay Nayak coming in, and on 22nd August, we got Bruce Fordis coming in. And by end of the month, we also have got two other, one runner, which is Rajendra Joshi from Pune. And also on 30th, we have got one more runner and coach, a great endurance coach, Nori Williamson, who's going to be there. So please stay tuned to our channel on a weekly basis for interviews, articles, and everything about running. So thank you very much for coming in, and see you next week, Friday. Bye.